it may seem like you know, I can be judged for, look, all the judgment is just comparison, okay? It's just you're being compared to other people who have done more, and you don't know what they did to do more. So, like, they're using you, right? I mean, and like, how do you know they want what you think they want, right? And like, how do you know somebody who doesn't say anything doesn't want the same thing or better, and aren't capable of wanting better? Or, and then what's the comparison? Like, how can you put anything as better than something else? Like, in an expression, like interpreting the expression, this show is better than another show, is just like encouraging a calculation on the real number line, where one thing has a higher value number than another number. Like, and then, is that right? Because it's obviously not right. I mean, it seems right at first. Oh yeah, but is that a language that you can adapt to, really? Like, is that really a language that you can trust to have things valued in a sort of a real number line kind of way? It really wouldn't be. Like, there should be like 20 dimensions for valuing something if that's the case, and even then, it still wouldn't be good enough. So how do you say it's better? Well, what if you didn't say anything was better than anything else? But then how do you know what's good? Okay, right, and then you really don't. So you gotta just think about calculation as being sort of a judgment-free zone, but don't throw everything at it. Don't use it too suddenly or too much. But then how much? And then of course that also on the real line. Too much is doing something too much quantifiable. Like, well, I suppose it is. I'm not incorporating that into I'm becoming a hypocrite because, like, but then life is all about balance anyways. It's just like, don't do anything too much. That's moderation is key, right? Why am I bothering with this? Because, like, I mean, that's nearly everything that you say to yourself could be as simple as making choices between things. When making choices between things, that's the problem. See, the problem is you're saying something is better than something else, but taken individually, they aren't connected to a real number system, like in themselves with finality. But you're just inserting a relation that's a mathematical relation between two independent existence afterwards, which is what you do with products and things, right? But not intentionally. It's just your way of coping with the fact that it's not a live thing that you have, right? And maybe you didn't want a live thing in the first place. Like, I mean, I recorded The Simpsons, but it's not because I wanted to connect with The Simpsons, because I knew that as a thing, it's more like a encouragement to embrace certain mannerisms or characters, and sort like, you don't want to be the asshole who goes around telling everybody that their characters that they like aren't alive, because that's weird. But how right could you possibly be by telling somebody else that their characters that they that they see in their private spaces are like whatever, like not alive or something? But like it doesn't even make sense. Like you could look at a wall and it's alive because it is alive, because life is alive and life is somewhere, and you're looking at a wall, but you can still say that life is alive because it shouldn't be assumed necessarily that what you're talking about or thinking about is the thing that's in front of you, right? So don't make that presumption. when somebody's talking, like about a thing, even. So a thing is this thing. It's like a used, but it's not necessarily used either. But maybe it should be used. You see, maybe things should be used, and life should be given to them, in the sense that it shouldn't be taken from them by judgment. But we offer things to each other to support their life, not to control the connection in a way that's convenient, so that my social world is like, what happened to the social world over the years? It's like people started using Facebook, and like when I used Facebook at first, I was like, this is a tool for communicating to my friends, right? This is like a way for me to send a message out to say I'll be out, or that I'm going to be out, or something. And then people, when they have a degree or a master's or like a new job, they say it on LinkedIn now, but it's the same kind of thing. They're saying that they've achieved something, and with that is the presumption that there is a certain freedom now for that person, that that helps their social life, that they're more free to hang out, or that they're able to accept new jobs now, or new work, and the work is part of the social world. But like Facebook then became about all these things you don't understand, and then like the question is like, can I make new friends through Facebook, is like the question, which you don't think about, because you think a healthy social world is like you make new friends naturally, and Facebook is like a recording thing to keep your friendships going. It's like to remind you that you have friends, like, or if you don't have friends, don't fucking use Facebook. No, like study mathematics, or like get into something, be a hero, be someone great who you're taught is capable of doing more than what it would appear that you're capable of doing. In the absence of judgment, you shouldn't be judged by anyone as not having friends, really. Because, well then, okay, so the problem with Facebook is that somebody is saying they have friends on Facebook. But then, like, what? Is it in Facebook? Or is it that they have friends, and then when they're saying that they have friends on Facebook, they're no longer saying anything, because Facebook is saying it, and Facebook can't say that, and it shouldn't say that. So why is it saying it at all? We shouldn't have even used Facebook in the beginning. We should have had our own pages, our own blank pages, where we can just write whatever the hell we want, like draw pictures, express ourselves in our own pages, and then when your friends visit your page, they know, oh, that's his page, I know him, yeah, or whatever. And even if you don't know the guy, you can still admire his work or enjoy the page, right? But like the structure went, like, I don't know. Now, I didn't spend that much time investigating Facebook, but the structure went to shit. Maybe that's what I'm doing. Anyway, look, hello. Hello. Okay, so I just want to talk about the contrast between Barney the Dinosaur and Godzilla. I don't know if anybody noticed that in Godzilla there's a scene where Julie Kavner, one of the 3 voices of The Simpsons that I noticed were in Godzilla the movie only recently, and like I didn't even think about the possibility that they were connected when I watched Godzilla for the first time back when I was a kid. There's a scene where it's like the only scene that she's in, but there's Barney the Dinosaur on a little TV in the room, and then Godzilla walks past the window as well, and it's like such a classic scene. But the contrast between Barney the Dinosaur and Godzilla speaks to me as a contrast between a simpler sort of cartoon world and the danger of real monsters, which, to be honest, could exist in either, right? And I guess it was a breath of fresh air for the actors from The Simpsons to play in a huge blockbuster film about an apocalyptic scenario involving dangerous mutated beasts, which there are actually a lot of films about big monsters and giants and huge battles over cities in the Asian countries, which The Simpsons worked with when they were in their early development days, over the classic Simpson days, when they used to send the stills for their cartoon scenes to North Korea or to South Korea, I don't know, to Korea for whatever functions that they were able to do on the early thing. And I think they lost that in the recent episodes. I don't think they're outsourcing to Korea anymore. So they've lost like a huge thing by not remaining connected in that way. I don't think they do that anymore. It's all lawyers now in The Simpsons. It's all lawyers, and like that guy with the glasses and the tie with the suitcase. It's like he's running everything now. It's like those guys, okay, fair enough. But the fundamental element of The Simpsons was that the actors behind the voices worked with this country on the other side of the world, making the cartoon with Matt Groening as well. Matt Groening, how did he draw so much? But like he drew like so much of his life before The Simpsons too. He drew like Life is Hell and Work is Hell and School is Hell, comic collections, like hundreds of pages of simple drawings. And it's like, that is a freaking religion, you know. It's like, it's almost like a religion. It's brilliant. It's like, that's part of the world of the internet, really. It's like part of the big interconnected world, like the big interconnected world, not just the world that's self-referential to the point of insanity, which popped up around Family Guy and Futurama, I guess. Well, Futurama less so. Futurama was like a dive into space. And then Family Guy, like, looks like Family Guy sort of capitalized on the family impression that The Simpsons built. And Family Guy is just like regurgitating so much of it, and like it's lazy, like cartooning is so lazy. And I really appreciated the way in The Simpsons they built the world as they went along, you know, like they really did. Like you look at it and it's like part of it is in the world that they were in, that, you know, you really get like it's very human centered, it's humanity centered expression, because you know, it's like they want to say something about how Homer Simpson like spends his afternoon, right? But I mean, they don't have to get anything else too involved, you know. It doesn't have to be too involved, because the world is created world. It's not a world that they have to deal with when they're creating it. They don't have to create the same thing that was already there, or they don't have to like incorporate so many things that are current events. I mean, I get that the work is heavily dependent on the writers, and I suppose a lot of people would just assume that they had great writers, but then the writers left and they were replaced, and it's just not the same show after that, right? But then you could look back over the show and confuse yourself by thinking there's something in the show that that like criticizes the new episodes, or you could say that they are they're different shows. Like the older one and the newer one are different shows with the same name, which makes more sense. But like, it's a slow evolution, and the idea of it being the same family is bizarre because the family started in 1989, like around then, and then it moved on to like now it's 2025. That's like 36 years ago that the Simpsons were the Simpsons, you know. So it's like, what are we doing with the Simpsons, guys? Like, what have we created, you know? Well, I didn't create anything, but the thing is, I watched the Simpsons, so I feel like, you know, it's a part of like what I do in my life, because like part of my personality actually built on episodes of The Simpsons that I used to record on my cassette. With the old TVs were so great, man. You could just put in an empty video cassette and then record your favorite shows and save them. But now the new TVs are just monitors with all these things. I don't know how they work. That's the problem, is I don't know how they work. I have to buy something to get anything to work, and I don't do that. I don't buy things, man. I don't buy things. I get handed down things, and I just try and see what I can do, and it turns out that I can do very little because I haven't done, because it's like, you know, you just get pushed down and down and down from when you're a kid to when you're an adult. So eventually you're not in control of anything like that you want to be in control. You want to actually just sit down on the couch in front of the TV, press the on button, and then, is there anything on? No, there's nothing on. Well, I watch an old video, okay, and I'll just watch one of my favorite shows or whatever that I recorded myself. Or at least I can say I recorded it myself. It doesn't bother anyone else. I'm just alone in my room, and I'm watching whatever, like the Comet episode, or one of those Krusty the Clown loses his job episodes or something like that, you know. I stopped watching The Simpsons a long time ago. And my mom threw away all my tapes. We had like 25 tapes. I had Homeward Bound, Fly Away Home. I had bits of shows, bits of films, you know, like just bits of films. And I knew when they'd come on after my, you know, I'd have the Simpson episode, and I knew how much that taped over the other show. And then there was like, you know, a few seconds of a film, like all scratchy and everything at the beginning of the tape, you know, because I taped over loads of times, and that was my progression in life, you know. That's like, you know, as a kid, it's like, that's my deal, you know, that's where I stand in the development process, you know. That's my media gig. It's just, I have a tape with like 10 different things taped over and over and over, and then, you know, and then you're just like making the perfect 2-hour slot for like God knows when, because you're never going to watch the whole, but then you do watch the whole thing, you know, you watch the whole thing. I had like half an hour of Speed, the film, and then like episode of The Simpsons, and I stopped recording during the ads. I never recorded the ads, for crying out loud. Why would you record the ads? And you know, you stop it just when the ads are coming on, and then you start recording just when the ads are finished. And that's the ethic that you take when you want to give yourself a proper treatment as a viewer of television. You don't like leave the ads running. You don't want to watch the ads. I'm sorry, but it's just like, why are we watching ads? The ads come on by accident. They're your cue to go to the toilet, or you know, or whatever. Or change the channel and see what else is on. And then they time the ads so that they're all at the same fucking time, so that you can't escape them. That's dreadful. Why would you give that to other people? Like, why would you force other people to watch ads? Who does this? Like, why? Like, I mean, if you want people to be curious and to just, well, okay, right. We're not perfect. We're not all experts in like knowing exactly what somebody wants, right? But like, And like ads are creative, and they're a great stepping stone to get into the industry, I suppose. Right? But I don't know because I don't work in the industry. But maybe I do to an extent. Now I don't have a resume or anything like exactly. Although if I were to produce a resume, it would be very self-centered and very ignorant as well to the actual work that people want you to do. Like they want you to do hard work, partly, or you assume that they want you to do hard work, which is terrible and completely against the impression you get as a kid when you're watching a show that they've made and they want to share with you. Not because it's in the way that like a brother would want to share with you something that they think you should watch, because it's like you might enjoy this thing if you watch it. It's not like now it's like no one has a family, like no one has like connections with like the creator, by just watching and understanding the show like a little bit, like not just like everything, but like at a high level or something. I mean, it's like, yeah, okay. And then the argument is that you know, whatever. But like my argument is that you have time and you're sharing it with everyone, right? And that is your, like whatever. Like you don't have to worry about that if everyone has their own recording device for their TV shows. But like things change, and then like everything changes with it. And then it's like we just accept that a time has passed and that the age has passed and we're no longer using these tools. So it's like that's gone, but it's not gone, obviously, because if you just hold on to your old devices, you have all the same things that you had before. But it's my fault. I bought a new thing and then stopped using the old thing, and then that's finished. So, but like that's terrible. Let's talk about going down to level 1. Let's talk about talking to yourself. Let's talk about not talking to millions of people for a change. Let's talk about what you really want to ask. If you want to really ask something, for fuck's sake, man, I studied for so many years. I want to ask loads of questions, right? But I don't want just like the solution, I don't want the solution that other people get that I don't get. I want to be taught a lesson. And I don't want the lesson to always be the same kind of fucking lesson where it's like starts off with I'm doing something wrong and I have to fix it. I want the question to be like, what's your question? Not just like, that's your question. What's my answer? It's what's your question? That's how school works. Is it? Well, no, it's not, right? Because I have to say, well, that's that at some point, and I'm saying that's school, but that's not school. That's me talking to myself, right? That's not school. School is more brilliant. School is brilliant in the way that, like, I don't know. I think it's just what people do in school that's brilliant. It's not the school itself. I mean, the school is a mess of bad furniture and unfulfilled builders sitting and waiting for that day someday in the future when they can build it themselves, right? That's school for the growing person. But yeah, school is just an empty room and somebody interrogating themselves sometimes. No, it's not. But it's like, if that's what you think is fair for millions of people, like you've just gone light years ahead of everyone else down the rabbit hole of your own control system. Like, because it's like, you think that, you think you have the information, but you have the information that nobody wants. You have the information that we're in boxes, like we're stored, or that we're limited in some way. And all of that information doesn't help communication at all. It's just an inhuman limit on like actual life. It's just getting everybody to conform to like what we need to deal with. And we don't. We only need to deal with it if we're all recruited into the same fucking system. And the only people who benefit from that are the people who recruited other people into it, so that they can say, oh, well, somebody else is doing it now and I'm off, right? But that's not life. Life isn't a big shitstorm of problems that you have to hand on to the next people so that you can move on. It's not. It's like life has joy in it, and it has mystery in it, and it's the mystery of the questions that other people dare to ask in spite of themselves, you know, like, and it's about admitting, like, really, that you don't know everything, right? But you do know enough, but you don't have to know enough. See, that's the thing. You don't have to know everything. You don't have to reflect the limitations on identity that result from seemingly fair submission to a communication system, for instance, or to a social structure in society, like where you have to be polite. You don't have to force yourself to be polite, but it doesn't mean you don't get to talk to people. But you just have to be patient. You have to be patient so that you could talk to somebody, but then you have to realize that all the fears that you have about doing something that somebody else could do again, I mean, maybe that's just because you're not brave enough to talk to yourself. And maybe there's a reason for that I don't know, right? So, and not wanting to know what I could need to know, it could be part of the reality of the possibility that somebody else can do exactly what I'm doing, but it's not exactly what I'm doing, you know what I mean? It's just like when you categorize people's actions enough, you feel like you've understood the other by understanding the medium, which is allowed because it's more important that you understand yourself. And to move on, maybe that's one of the necessary things. To say, okay, well, that's just a video of some guy talking to himself. Okay, moving on. Do what you're going to do. But why do you need to understand what millions of people are thinking? For fuck's sake, man. Why is that even a part of our language at all? Like, that we think that we're talking to millions of people. Like, that's insane. It's absolutely insane. But I don't have the capacity to uphold this viewpoint. I'm only expressing something. It's normal, though. It's normal the way people talk. People talk normally. Like, they don't express that it's normal to talk. They don't express that it's like normal to talk. Because there's some like hang up we all have with like one person millions of years ago who didn't talk and he was right. So now no one's allowed to fucking talk. That's the shittiest idea ever. And it seems to be the case because it's like in society we don't talk, and we don't talk to each other. We just say things. We don't talk to each other. And we think that's what somebody else caused that problem, but it wasn't us. But you don't take responsibility for yourself when you project that, like, because you don't know. You don't know what somebody else is thinking. And you just decide that they didn't want to go with you on that journey of exploration. You know, and it's a mutual journey as well. You know, it is fair. But I actually only... The thing is, you're just, like... not able to outlive the beyond. You know? It's like, once, like, you've decided that you can't carry a tool, and the tool will go on. You're not going to break the tool. But it's not all about tools for anyone. But I'm not a tool, you know. But the thing is, we mustn't communicate directly with tools. We must communicate to each other. I guess that's something that I notice in society with smartphones, is that a lot of sensible, reasonable people are just using them the way they used normal phones 20 years ago, just to call their friends or to stay in touch. Right? Even though it has the capacity to do things that are just like mind-blowing, like saving an idea. But then, are we just rejecting ideas because it's not fair for them to be saved that way? Or is it not fair that we're doing too much with ideas and not sharing them enough? You know, if we're not sharing the ideas, it becomes unfair. And for the wrong reasons too. Because the people who have ideas to share and don't share them aren't necessarily doing it for selfish reasons. They could be doing it because they haven't reached the, I don't know, they haven't found their clan, or they haven't found their tribe, right? So they haven't found a low energy state of relaxed coming and going of thought processes, which is possible. I believe it's possible, but it's less elevated when you encounter problems in the real world that distract you. But the problems in the real world aren't somebody else's fault, you know? It's like, it's not a part of somebody else's message. Another thing is, I want to stop asking for everything, because I'm not going to ask for everything, you know, from everybody else. I'm only asking for things for myself. And because of that, I'm not asking too much either, because I want to exist and I want to be happy in my existence. I don't want to be demanding myself to work so much if I don't necessarily think that it's going to be enjoyable. Because I've encountered a lot of hacking and broken technology, and I think it's annoying enough for me to decide that I'm not convinced that it's a part of my, you know, role in society, you know. And it's a pretty done deal in my head at this stage that I don't have the responsibilities to uphold certain standards for viewers, for instance, which would be the reasoning that any body responsible for his image takes on when he realizes that his image is seemingly accepted by others, which should be normal as well. Because, I mean, it's so much easier to accept another person's image than it is for themselves to accept it, but they have to think a lot more about themselves than other people have to think about them in general. So, like, I mean, it's like saying, like, don't show me your wounds. But, like, the other person, they have the wounds, you know? I mean, showing themselves the wounds is hardest for them. So, I mean, like, we should just be more comfortable in seeing other people's wounds. And more understanding. Like, and less centralized in our judgment. That's the thing as well. We're very centralized. You know, all the judgment is all, like, it's not just that, it's the language of judgment. The language of judgment is very personalized, and then it's just passed on to everyone else, you know? Like, is that the normal way of solving problems? It's just like somebody, oh, I found all these problems, here they are, and I'm not dealing with them anymore. So good luck. But It's not quite like that, because they're very difficult problems, right? But then why the hell should anyone have to be receiving these problems? But then it's because they're the wounds that other people are actually facing, and it's harder for them who face the wounds that they have sometimes. Or at least it is if they're only sort of like, if they're more fear than judgment. But the thing about it is, shared judgment becomes part of the communication faster than a shared fear. A shared fear is ignored until it's too late, because it's avoided before it happens, right? In some cases. But history tells a different story, and nobody controls history. History is the truth on a slower journey to your consciousness than direct experience. It's the truth that has had to climb over walls and through the earth to get to wherever it's going, you know? Like, wherever the past is going. It's not just all the past either. It's like the past, man. The past. You can see the past in your scars, and you can see it in other scars, and you can see it in your bad ideas for the future. But you don't want to see it in your meditation. You want to see the present in your meditation. So do you know where you're getting your history from? Because nobody wants to talk back to the newscasters about things they can't control. It just drives people crazy. But it's true. Things happened. Sure. You accept it. But things happen in video games. You don't accept that. And then, you know, in our dreams, something happened in our dreams. And how hard it is to accept those things. You know? I have in my mind being, thinking. So I have words. To hear myself express, which is a way I limit myself, because I have a plan. I have rules, right? I have some kind of rules about what I allow myself to say. Normally, that's not worth mentioning, but of course, in the pursuit of truth, you got to be able to ask what you really want to ask. Like, not just what other people ask you, and then what you're allowed to ask other people, and then what you need to know so that other people don't ask, which is like 90% of what you ask. Where were you last night? You know, what are you going to do tomorrow? These are the things you have to know so that other people don't have to ask. Which just goes to show, like, I mean, they don't ask, what are you asking? They ask just enough so that they don't have to ask anymore. And that's like That's like the government that I'm in at the moment, you know. And then it's like, can you imagine how worse it would be if you were only just talking about one thing, you know, and you were limiting yourself in what you could talk about? But it's like, where the fuck are you, man? Are you in the fucking studio talking to hundreds of thousands of fucking people? Because if you are, you're not allowed to ask some things anymore, man. Because it's like, it's already too late, man. You're already fucking talking about some fucking thing that you have or the thing that you're doing next fucking week. Like, like, what have you done? like, what have you done to the way you talk about anything anymore? Like, I mean, come on. And then I suppose nothing's changed. You're still able to talk about whatever you want. But who's giving you permission to do that? Not me, man. I'm not giving you permission to talk about whatever you want. You are. And the way you limit yourself, that's what you have to deal with. The same with me. I have to deal with things. I have to deal with how I limit myself. You know, I'm just like smoking cigarettes, right? Talking, because it helps me. Well, it seems to help me talk, but obviously I could talk like without the cigarette, and it would be a different experience. And I'll try that, but like next week for millions of people. Oh yeah, that's going to be great. That's going to work. So yeah, it's like you got to be different people, don't you? I mean, you got to be the person who talks, and you got to be the person who listens. That's how you balance your communication. The question, where are you going with this, comes to me, right? Doesn't look great, does it? Because, you know. And then how it looks surely isn't the answer. But the problem is, when I stop recording, this mood is gone. And all that seems to be left is how it looks, you know? So the musicians have a different story. Because they keep playing music, you know? The music goes on, the beat goes on after the recording. You know, that's how it works, really. You know, you continue to be yourself after your impression has been made. But, you know, I'm looking at all the machinery of the work and editing and all of that, and I'm just smoking a cigarette, you know. And I think there's a beautiful kind of submission to natural reality in just accepting that I'm not doing everything. Yeah, I'm not doing everything. But that's something that, you know, I want to help build in game development or in world development, like a lot of other people. I want to help put that natural sort of reality there, you know, as well. You know, most people who play Minecraft love building. Love. It's not just building, you know. It's so easy as a developer who seems to feel like okay, like that's just the image, right? I feel like, but then the expression of myself is also part of the image. So like when I say this is me, like, is it me, you know? And obviously smoking is a bad idea. You know, I think I understand, but others don't. And is that part of my image? Am I creating it? Probably. You know, I could be manipulating people. But yeah, and then there's like, well, there's a lot of existential angst going to ensue if I don't tackle these issues at some stage through my day-to-day life. You know, do some training or something, do some exercise, whatever I can. But then it's very selfish as well. Like, well, what else do I do? You know, am I actually just some kind of stuck-up prince living in a castle who doesn't understand the real world problems? But then, like, and then am I actually representing this group of this know-it-all privileged class of people who are avoiding problems by talking as though they are avoidable when they're really not? And just being able to express that is enough when it isn't. Yeah, that's a part of it. That's part of the problems. Yeah. But like, there's other problems too. Like, and the problems in development are actually, like, they seem so small, and you have to be really polite in order to be like, oh, can I just try and win a driving game race for 2 minutes, and can I do that without having to ask for permission? Like, can I be part of, this thing that, and I don't mean like part of it, like, the same way that I'm a part of this video, but like, that, can I be a small part of a small thing that means something to me now, or when I'm doing it, at least, and is it encapsulated? Like, is the world so devoid of chaos that I can coexist with it without being, baggage for society? That's what you have to think about if you're a game developer, because you're a gamer too, right? I mean, you couldn't just be building houses for God knows what, right? Which is what it feels like in my game, because there's no one else there. But there is people there. But that's the thing as well. They're not like real people necessarily. They have to be supported by some kind of sense, and it's too much, really. It's like, it's a top-down approach, right? It's the old Chinese tradition of top-down building, where you start with the message, and the rest, I mean, you don't say, does this world have rocks in it? If it doesn't, I don't believe anything that they say in that world. You couldn't have that. And I mean, of course, the reason why we have like so many chat platforms is because we just want to chat and we don't need all the extra work. But like, the new chat platforms, look, these are things that I don't really understand. But the question is, not my question anymore, man. I'm not asking that question right now, because I'm not using the chat platforms for that reason, because they make you think too much about like how we're communicating. Like, it's just too much. I need more friends in order to be able to, like, you need more friends in order to, well, you probably need more friends if you're watching this video this long. You probably, it's not like you need more friends. It's like I'm not asking that question for you. I'm not asking the question of, and I really want to ask that question as well, because it seems important, like, but it's not, because it's only, because I've already changed my mind about how I approach things, having criticized myself for my bourgeois attitude towards communication and usage of tools, which now eludes me, and I can no longer articulate it. And if it's been a competition for articulating things between my language and other languages, then I concede that another person in another language can probably capture that and do what they believe is right with that. That's faith, right? That's part of the faith, right? I don't have to. It's not that I don't have to. It's just that I can choose not to do something, that I feel is possible for me to do. But I mean, that's normal. But also, like, as a viewer as well, that's essential. I mean, because you can't just, feel responsible for what somebody else does on a video either, right? I mean, you can't just, like, need to do a better job than everybody who you've watched do things on camera. Like, do you have to be Marty McFly? Do you have to be like Al Pacino or, the driver or all of those things, What films are there? There's like The Driver. I don't know if there even is a film called The Driver, but there's there's a lot of films where there's like the and then a thing that somebody does, like I want to say The Attendant, but I know that's like a little dismissive. Like it's like what, The Informant. Yeah, like there's a film like The Informant or The Recruit or The Associate, The Visitor, and they're all really cool films and they're really cool messages as well. Yep. But like, do you have to, like, oh damn it, that's solid enough. I'm not going to touch that. But what I am, yeah, I'm just not going to touch that, man. That shuts me up. Thinking about all these big films, man. They're like, I love them, but it doesn't mean I'm going to watch them, because I'm always trying to do something with myself and sort of atone for my convictions in the past. If there's not that many results, like do I really have the authority, to? No, I don't. I don't have the authority to present on such a high energy level the questions, right? Somebody else should ask those questions. Like, so yeah, that's what I want to listen to on YouTube. I want, well, maybe, or in real life, I want somebody to say, here, we need to address the question of, do we need to be recruits, right? Do we need to, and I know this isn't the theme of The Recruit, the film The Recruit, but do we need to look at our, like, selves as having the capacity to recruit others for our ends? And then when you use general terms, you're being like a part of the government there, and you're like, like our things, this is what we do and all that. But like that's a social question, and social questions are framed that way because if you're too specific, I mean, there's so many problems you can encounter by being really, really specific in a question that you're asking everyone, right? I mean, for God's sake. And then you're like, the question is just about your own videos as well. Like, I mean, come on, man, come on. Why do you ask everybody for advice on your videos? Like, what? How do you think that you're that important? Like, on the whole, nobody's able to imagine that much. Fair enough. Like, you're not able to imagine what other people are thinking, and you shouldn't be able to. It's not your responsibility to think about what other people are thinking. For God's sake, some people are struggling to figure out what they're thinking themselves because they're not talking. And they're not talking because they're listening to your videos. And then, like, who am I talking to? Am I talking to a record button? Yeah, maybe. But then it's like, what the hell what's going on? Like, I mean, Chomsky said, question everything, right? That's what I'm doing, right? I can do that. And I can go further as well. But sometimes it's not pleasant, because it's like, it's not that you just have the wrong questions. It's that when you have some questions and you need to think, because you don't have all the answers, you have to think. And then it's like, does somebody else presume that you're just wasting time or you're just waffling or something, because you waffled in the past and that's you now, like, so, like, I can be smart, but not right now. Not right now. I'm not in the mood to be smart right now. I think that's okay. It's okay with a certain je ne sais pas, a certain mode d'emploi, a certain a certain passage, a certain momentum, I guess. Momentum. It's also force. It's force as well, right? It's like, it's not just that though. I can't just criticize what I say in what I do, because my criticisms could be too forceful for others later down the road. What if I'm talking to someone and who's more delicate and more sensitive than me, and that's more likely? And then, I mean, I'm projecting this very forceful attitude towards things because I programmed a little bit. I think programmers are like that. I think programmers are very fucking dead set on getting results from themselves because they're working alone a lot of the time. And so you don't expect to have a conversation with a programmer while they're working about anything, you know, because they need to focus on small things that need to be done and dusted and moved on from, because it's like a shared world. And the development world is like, is a little you know, it's a really precious thing that is important. And the problems of talking about things you don't understand balloon in the context of coding. But it doesn't mean that we should give all the problems to younger people to solve automatically, you know. Like, the proper thing to do is to offer problems that you've carefully thought about and that you would have a good answer for. And the answer itself is inspiring. It's like the answer that you to the questions that you offer. And I won't just say younger people, because it's like, that's not life, you know. Life isn't all about age authority. It's just you give problems that, I mean, if it's not in the arts, if it's in the sciences, you offer, if you're producing a fun experience for like communication that involves learning, with a request for others to think, which is a big request because sometimes you just don't want to think, right? I mean, it's not like you're going to get arrested. It's not that you don't want to think. It's that you don't trust the demands of a incoherent, thoughtless agent on your mind. You don't trust me, like, as it stands, because I haven't shown whatever. Because teaching is something really complicated. You have to be like above yourself, but involved more in the problem that you express, which is why you listen to people talking about subjects they're interested in and not subjects they're not interested in as much, right? But when the subject becomes a necessity, like how to survive, like through a tragedy or through danger or something like that, those rules get broken down, because there are no rules when you're trying to save someone. So you have less proprietary responsibility in those realms of discussion, you know, politics and big politics. You know, there's a lot of words that are changed because we're reaching very far out. We're trying to talk to anyone instead of just the one that you know and love in yourself, or the one that you create, or the one that you're trying to create, or the one that you're working with, or the thing that isn't you that you're making human. Like your car. But if you want to learn something in like proper way, like, how much resistance do you have to hearing it from a stranger? You know, like, how much resistance do you have to listening to someone explain to you like the meaning of life in real life, you know? Like, like, because maybe it's too much, you know. But maybe it's not. Maybe that's my problem. That's my limit. Isn't in communication, like, because this isn't necessarily communication either. You know, it's just truth seeking, right? But it's also truth seeking in the box. I'm in the box. I'm looking at the box. I'm in the box. I'm enjoying controlling the video that I'm watching myself create, but it's an imbalance as well. It's like, what is this experience, man? I can't live in this world forever. I have to go and watch videos then, right? I have to go and watch videos of things that I don't understand, expressed in ways that I don't, you know, have the capacity to always invest in, right? So it's like, what? And then the things I don't understand get lodged in my mind, and then I have to like build this resistance to letting that be part of the expression that a human's making, right? The human is saying something, laughing at a dog or something, right? And then the rest of the world is in the video too, you know, the grass, the air, you know, the relationships, you know, the you know, family, that's there too. Is that part of the expression? No. The expression is the connection, you know, it's part of the connection, and then the rest of it is framing, and then the framing gets lodged in your mind. It's like solving the framing problem is the social thing that we do before we think that we're able to communicate properly in our terms, you know. And that's development. So hats off to the developers, you know. But of course, hats off to developers. This is their world, right? I mean, there is no other way. There's no other way that you could have like a comfortable, stable existence in a video or in a game without having some kind of godlike appreciation for the people who made your bed and put things on your table, and you know whatever, how complicated the table is, or you know how clean the bed is, but you know you have to appreciate that, like, but by appreciating you're actually absorbing more than the developer is capable of absorbing while developing. Like the developer himself is just putting everything in the box, and then like when they look around they see that their friends have left them because they were, oh, what's he doing? Oh, he's just working on the computer. Okay, you know, like you know, like, and we have stories where like developers are demonized because they weren't there for each other, you know. But like, and then the question is like, yeah, but like, I mean, there's still loads of problems, like, you know. There's no limit to the amount of problems that are there as a result of people not, you know, not limiting themselves when they express things to each other. And then you could end up expressing that the framing was your intention, but the framing is the intention of the highest artists in the highest arts, you know, like Beckett. You know, his framing was golden, you know, because he chose a humble medium, right? But that's not all he did, you know. He was himself. He did his work, you know. And that's not the only reason why we enjoy Beckett. It's because he uses simple words and small words and easily translatable dialogues. Like, but yeah, Beckett's my hero. Let me explain. I just went over there and rolled a cigarette. But it wasn't a normal cigarette. It's a cigarette on a desk with a lot of books. And should I represent these books? Am I in like this tower where like it's all built on the premise that I'm going to do something with the books? I'm going to do something with the table. I am going to do something with the table, actually. But it's a different table. I'm going to learn how to code a table, which seems to be very important, where you have an index and then the values associated with the index. So when you're doing a function, you can take an input and then the output is the corresponding value on the table. You need that in coding. I don't know why I haven't learned it. I'm 35, I don't know how to do this. I've read it and I conceptually know clearly how it works. And if you know this, you can sort of shimmy in all these physical relations between real objects in space. Like things rotate, and the way they rotate from one point to another can be catalogued in a table, but at the end of the day it's still a results-based system where there's a result, an outcome, and then there's an input, and then sort of you lose a lot of the continuity of reality that way. But it's just one of those, because a lot of things in games are just stepping stones between conceptual states, and it's not so much, it's not necessarily all in the box. Somebody gives you a box, like they're saying, it's reality, is it here? It's not reality, man. It's not all there. Maybe it's coming someday, maybe it's implied, and maybe that's enough for it to be real. But when you're coding it in, it's like, what are you coding exactly? You're coding rules for reality. So you're not going to be surprised if something new happens in reality. You're just going to dismiss it because it's like you weren't asking for it. You weren't asking for another range of possibilities following a particular state, right? Because the state is already confined to what you're able to control, and that's polite, actually. But then when you're making video, you think you're recording yourself, and you're recording like the light that's bouncing off yourself, or you're recording parts of reality that you think are a part of you because you've been around them for so long. And that could be also other people too. To be around other people so much that you know them well, and then you record yourself among them. You're there. Is that you? And who cares? At the end of the day, who cares? Like, why would we pick at that? Like, why would we beat each other up over that? So let's not worry about it. Let's just not worry about it. The problem about it is that you have an opportunity to use yourself for the future, to dedicate your time and your patience and your understanding for the future. Like a president of a new world where you really are responsible for your actions. And that should be this world. The real world. Should be, well, no. Exactly. Right? Like, what? This world isn't the real world? No, well, yeah, but no, but yeah, but no, but yeah, but no, but yeah, but no. Yeah, I know, it's this world, and it's a different one too. Like, it's the other one. It's the outside one. Oh, the outside one is better. No, it's not better. It's just the real one. This isn't the real world. No, come with me on a journey. We're going to find the real world. But wait a minute, what are you doing? What are you doing? Come on. And then like, when I go somewhere when I can't speak the language as clearly as I speak English, what am I going to do? That's what everyone worries about when they think about living in some faraway place. Is that the limit? Is that why we don't travel? And then how successful could you possibly think you have been in learning another language when the people around you don't speak it? It's like one small step for man, and then for everyone else it's one small step for that man, one big step for us, who haven't done it. And now, like, what do we do? Now what do we do when somebody else knows 3 languages and what? Like, are they allowed to share that knowledge? You know, because it's like when you go into society, people aren't listening to much. You know, they're listening to the big deal. You know, they're listening to the big drama. But it's these little things that we don't get to talk about. We don't get to talk about, you know, our little stepping stones. It's just what the fuck did the big president do, and you know what happened in that city to all those people and all that. You know, it's not good. But what do you want from me? I'm trying to support a family. I haven't even got a girlfriend. I'm 35. You know, what do you want me to do? To get the information? Advertise it. Yeah. Well, look. I think that's all just a natural process that happens naturally. And if you think that you're doing it all yourself, it's another world where you use that information and that knowledge as a stepping stone to get to where you're going, and it's just another fork. You know, it's another fork. It's like your knowledge builds your world and it adds to it in a way that others must pause to appreciate. But others don't. You know, for everything that one person does to create their world, other people, they either don't have to do it because they have faith that everyone else is doing something that makes sense, or they don't do it because you did it yourself. You know, and like, which conceit do you hold when you create something? You know, do you really believe that you created something that others are going to use? And then, like, what does that make you? You know, like, what are you hiding then? You know, how did you do it? Is nobody going to ask you how you did it? Is nobody going to ask you how they're going to do it? And then how much can you give by way of explanation? I mean, are you trying to explain the thing as it is, or are you trying to explain that you're different to others? Or are you trying to point out that you found something worth doing and you did it with your time, but all the other things that you could have done, you didn't do? And that's because what? Because you weren't able to, or because you didn't see the point, or because you had faith that others were doing it and they were doing it right? Well, I think it's the faith that we need, and it's the world that we're in, and that's the mystery. You know, what do other people want to say? That's the question when you're talking. So, which is why you don't see your own video as valuable. You're not going to see your 1 hour long monologue as immediately valuable. And what does that mean then? But then time has a progression. You know, it's like, what happens if you take on too many challenges and you don't finish them? How do you give them? How do you save your progress? You know, in your world. And everyone's like wondering about being invited into a finished world, or into a world that's still becoming. And then if you put all that behind you, how quiet do you have to be about that? Because you don't know. But then not knowing things is how you end up talking too much, right? So I wanted to go to London and pass the Russian exam, but I actually didn't, twice. But I can still take the exam. I think I can still take the exam. But I'm riding on a lot of faith, and it's a lot of work. And I'm willing to do that, actually. But A lot goes into it. I don't think I was ready back in 2016 or 17 or 18 or 19 when I was learning Russian, but I was serious about it though. I was serious about learning it, but I wasn't ready to pass. So it's like I wasn't ready to tell myself that I'm anywhere on that path. Or I was, but I had to be really quiet about it. And like, why do I have to be so quiet about learning Russian? Like, it's a useful language if you're speaking to Russians, but also surely it benefits all the Russians who meet you for you to be able to speak some words, right? But then what does that mean for me? Like, telling myself that now, yeah, everything's fucking different, big deal, right? Pretend for a minute that everything isn't different, right? That I'm just being like, but then how do I do that? How do I conceptualize talking without like some kind of balance, right? Because it has to be just. Conversation has to be just. Language has to be justly used, like, because what's the conclusion? And then that's the question, like, am I being selfish in my real life communications by presuming that conclusions are valid? The thing is, words have their limits, right? I can say something, and it seems to be a lot of the case that locally, with direct conversation, in order to be actually understood, especially if I have a diverging viewpoint, it's a question of how much energy I'm willing to commit to it and how much time and patience I've demonstrated. Like, because it involves things that are beyond my control, basically, right? If I'm saying to my mom that I think it would be nice to have other people around, and it's the first thing I say all day, for instance, right? Like, and I'm saying it casually in passing and I'm disagreed with, then I have to invest more energy or accept that my opinion is different and I'm not invested in changing another person's opinion or having the result that I want. That's language. That's politics. It's not language. Language is about understanding each other in a way that, without breaking the words that you use. And why do you have these words? But like, why do you have these words? That you use or don't use. Because how successful are words? And do you use them at all? Or are they valuable because they are waiting for context and they're just waiting for a world that you're hoping will exist someday, which is normal. It's normal. You can see it's 1, 2, and 3, right? Yeah. The last video I was just counting me's, but I've changed that now. Now it's just, this is number 1. I'm number 1, right? I'm number 1. That's number 2. That's number 3. Actually, that's number 4 because number 3 is the one I'm looking at, right? I'm looking at number 3 and the phone. This is the recording process. In the post process, you're looking at number 3, and then this is only number 2 to me, and then it doesn't matter, does it? It doesn't matter, does it? No. It's not like I do this all the time, but when I was younger, I used to love talking to myself in the mirror, man, because it was like the things you can ask, and then you can think about what you're asking, and you can say something back that makes sense, And then it's like, okay, did I help him or did he help me? Oh, it's great, But the thing about that is, you're just going to be more and more accustomed to talking to yourself and like looking for yourself. So they say on YouTube all these things. Find your tribe. Okay, find your clan or find your tribe. Find your tribe is what they say. They say in good spirit, they say it, and it's it's like, for me as well, I think, I should find my tribe. But that is like, what is it? No. Because it's not all just a bunch of copies of me. It's like, there's somebody out there, but am I looking for somebody like me? And is there a chance in hell that the person is going to be comfortable, listening to me talking English nonstop? What if they speak a different language? So I need to be learning languages. I need to be traveling. We all need to be traveling, and we all need languages and all this. But I just can't let go of the fact that some people are working really hard to provide this for other people. I think that's part of the society that we're in. And then if I talk too much, it's like I'm just this guy who talks and doesn't understand, and I'm also wasting time, and ultimately I'm wasting the future's time as well. And this is what I think. I'm talking to the future, and I'm like, this thing is going to help me talk to the future. And maybe it is, but it's only one way. It's like I can't go back. And if I was going back, would I go back for myself? Would I go back for somebody else? And where's it all coming from anyway? Why do I think that? And also, am I going to make myself want to smoke by looking at myself smoking cigarettes? Obviously not, because that's not social, right? It's not social to be just talking about cigarettes all the fucking time. Like, come on. Why would I do that? And then it looks like I'm being selfish with my smokes. And I'm like, I'm not giving any smokes to you. But in reality, back when I used to hang around outside bars or gigs, it was, you do share your smokes, you share your beers. You don't make a big deal about it, right? I mean, I'm not going to be like, here, have a smoke, because you don't want that, right? But do you want it? Like, do I want it? I have to ask myself, do I want it? And then it's like, that seems to be not productive, because that's something I think about a lot, and it's something that's part of the whole meditation on normal life that just isn't projected. It's just not projected, right? And I could try to project that, but I'm not a professional movie maker, right? And I'm not an expert. And I'm not guilty. So moving on, I just treat this like a microphone. I'm like, I got a certain amount of minutes, and they're gonna run out, and that's enough. Nobody likes that, but that's enough. And in China, you just throw a cigarette away with one puff because they're dirt cheap, and they come in a fancy box. But there's this general rule where you don't want it. You don't really want it, but there is something else that, as a living entity, you're going for, and it's clearly the case that this isn't what you want. It's like chalk on a chalkboard. It's not really the chalk that you want, it's the message on the board that you want, right? And then when you see it, it goes into your mind, not into your body. So it's like that. But can I just decide what it's like? I mean, no, because I'm just digging a hole for myself. So, and then it's like, I need to reflect. Do I need to reflect? Or do you need to reflect? And then it's like, what should I expect from myself, in the future? But is it me? They're going to convince you that you put yourself in a fucking box, because they do that, The whole development process. It's like, I made a video. Oh, a video, right? So it's not a big thing. It's not a big project that you have a full understanding of. So then it's like, what am I doing? And who's on my back the whole time? Like, while I'm trying to make it a thing that still exists, because These things just get blown out of the fucking pond that you're in. Your little well is just never big enough for all those tools, you know. Ultimately, you produce a thing that's going to be compared with other things that has a certain amount of storage space requirements and likelihood of being destroyed. And it's like, is that the world we're in then? It's just a world where we're all expecting everything to just go poof, you know, when it's been deemed a little, you know, a bit waste of space. We need other things instead. Well, you know, why don't we just like destroy all the things that we don't need or don't want, or that, you know, but then it's because they have some kind of potential value. And and for those things you decide, okay, we'll create a bit more space, you know, we'll buy a few more servers to store all this thing, because you never know when we might need to know when Susie was talking to Jacinta. You never know, huh? Yeah, you never know. But well, you see, this is why I'm so bad at complaining. So, because it hurts me, you know, it hurts me to have to use my voice that way, you know. I'd rather use my voice to explore the kind of the health related benefits of using your vibrations to understand your body and to understand the rhythm of life. You know, the rhythm of life is like how long it takes to actually open a door. You know, how long it takes to move from a room to another room. That's all programmed into your mind when you think. You know, you go from a room to another room and it's like, it takes a certain amount of time, but that is enough time for you to acclimatize yourself to another room. Like, there's just one example of the many ways in which that world is different to this world, you know. But there's another world, man, and I'm just not good at showing it anymore. I just want to be myself with myself to an extent, because I think that something is coming from it, but it's not really. It's just like, I worry that it's, you know, that I'm just like riding on the wave of interest, and it's not my interest, which is shit. You know, why isn't it my? Why can't I be more interested in myself than anyone else? Yeah, that's normal. It's normal to be interested in yourself, but you don't know when. You don't know when you're going to be comfortable watching a video, or if there's any demand at all on yourself to do so, because it could just sit there eating up space in your hard drive and you could have a nice existence, right? That's normal too, but it's ignorant, but it's normal, you know. And it's social, maybe it is, because then you could be watching the video or you could be talking to somebody else, you know. Like, clearly one is more locally social. So, and I'm not saying anything against the device as it stands, like as a recording device. It's like a interesting kind of a microphone system where you can record yourself. But then I wasn't built for this, you know. I wasn't built just to talk to myself, you know. I was built to go out there into the world and do things, you know. Maybe even to someday get a car, you know, all that stuff, all the good stuff, you know. And I have to think about that, do I? Yeah, you know, I have to think about it, but I don't want to like lose balance thinking about it. I don't want to do too much to change what I think I need to change. Like, do I need to, what, you know, you ask, do I need to change something? You know, of course there's advice coming, but is it for me? Is this advice for me? Or like, what do I need to change? Do you know what I need to change? I know what I need to change, right? But do I have to know what I need to change? And then it's like, when you start thinking about these things, you're like, oh, okay, I need to sort of, you know, do more development, I guess. I'm a vicious fucking chain smoker when I'm making videos. Okay, and I don't know how far I can push this, you know. I should probably try and cut it out to a certain extent. But and then I think about it like, and I'm like, if I transcribe my words, it's not going to look that great, you know, because it's like all of these like little, what are they called? Yeah, but you don't want to be all picking yourself apart, but you should. Maybe you should. Maybe it's a survival instinct to go over the things that you create a few times. Edit it. Take out all the things that, you know, change while you're doing it. While you're editing, change. You know, not just change while you're doing what seems to be the funnest thing. Maybe I'm a fool. Maybe I'm a complete fool when it comes to watching videos, actually. And I think all there is in the world is just what those guys on camera are doing. You know, and it's not. I'm not thinking about all the work that goes into it behind the scenes. But why? Am I inherently selfish, or am I spoiled? But like, I use words like, or, you know, we all do. Yeah, it's called normal speech. But it's also to do with giving yourself a bit of freedom to express things on the energy level that you're comfortable with. You're not comfortable always shouting. Like, you're not comfortable always making a point that's gonna be the fucking be all and end all for all eternity, you know? And I watched Eraserhead as well, and I would say that Eraserhead, no, that guy, you know, if I was him, you know, wandering around this empty concrete place in the dark, you know, listening to his radiator, I'm thinking, you know, how much would that world be benefiting from him talking to himself? You know, if he just, like, you know, remembered stuff and made jokes, or, you know, I don't know, had a personality, you know, had a personality that wasn't so quiet or controlled by his circumstances around him, you know. If he had some kind of reserve of emotional stability, which I think he probably does, but you can't say anything really about him because he doesn't go crazy or anything, like, you know. Well, he goes crazy, but he doesn't express that kind of craziness in an immature, devil may care, anyone can do this kind of way, you know, like I seem to be doing, which is why you don't look at my video the same way you look at Eraserhead, obviously. But I remember looking at a radiator in Latvia, and I was sitting there, you know, I was going through my own sort of diet as well. I wasn't eating everything, but at the same time I was not eating much either. You know, it's not because I found the perfect diet that I wasn't eating that much, which I imagine would be the case for people who don't eat that much. But in my case, I'm eating a lot, but it's a very restricted diet nonetheless. I'd much rather, you know, like most people, I think, explore different flavors and spices and things, but it's also kind of like, you know, something that you can choose not to do too much of as well in your life and still get by and still be content, right? It's like, you know, I don't have to watch every single video on the internet to be content, but I don't know everything, obviously, but nobody knows everything, but some people know more than others, and they're good leaders in some sense, but how much can you follow a good leader of, you know, knowledge, because they have make sacrifices and they're there to protect people in some ways, I think, but you just assume that because they seem to demonstrate the capacity to protect people a lot, but the way they do it and the way they show it, there's a difference. You know, there's a lot of work that goes behind the scenes. You know, they study all day, you know, they work hours a day, you know, before they write. Like Stephen King didn't just write books, he read books too, right? So, you know, Eraserhead. But you think about the reality of a person as well, you know, and like sometimes the movies just, they have created people who blow your mind thinking about them, and ultimately you let them disappear from your imagination and you don't know why. Like, because the characters themselves didn't ask themselves, why do I exist in the way that you do? I would. Like, I ask myself, do I, not so much do I exist, but I do assume that I exist before I do anything. And I might not exist, right? But then that's ridiculous. Like, what's that mean, you know? I might not exist. Well, one interpretation is that I'm already dead by the time this video is out. No, it's that I would have passed eventually. The video might remain, but that's a ridiculous sentiment to hold. Like, I mean, that's giving too much. That's giving too much to the system of recording that you seem to behold. But you seem to behold the system of recording because you find that easier than committing yourself to constant work. And that makes sense, right? It does. But nobody created, like, wood, you know? Nobody created stone. But people worked a lot on treating those things with wisdom. And I suppose you could say the same thing about a lot of things. I'll move on from this subject now, because I'm not. Because what? Like, see, how do you move away from a subject? Do you think there's an expert who can deal with this better? Like, and why? And should you, right? Is education too much forced at us? Like, do we have to know everyone's an expert and everything? Because you're not thinking. But then, like, people's knowledge is being dismissed. But it's not. It's just being, filtered. Right? But I'm just using words that I think I understand to move on from things I don't understand. And if you understand a lot of words, but you don't understand a lot of things, you're going to just run around in circles probably. You might not, though. You might understand a lot of things too. It might be a sacrifice you make for the language that you speak. But in my experience, you have to think about what other people say a lot to understand them, and also to coexist with your own thoughts. And then there's could I sit in a room for 20 hours constantly talking to myself, see what I can come up with? No, because it's not social, and you wouldn't expect that from others, would you? I mean, it's not part of any conversation that exists or should exist, where everybody has to sort of talk to themselves a lot in order to understand things. And then what's the result? You know what that is now, do you? Because you obviously don't, because other people are doing it as well, right? And they have their different approaches, and they have to have the different approaches. Can they have the same approach? Just, well, this is a waste of time, I'm just talking to myself. Most sane people would come to that conclusion. It's like, well, what can I possibly learn talking to myself all the time? But then if you're not really connecting yourself to the it seems, is a rationale the right word? Rationale. Is it a rationale to expect to work before you expect to be accepted by a group, or by a team, or a school, or a class, or a level? Well, it wouldn't be easy, right? And if I was talking to myself for 20 minutes, 20 hours, I would run out of things to say after the first 10 hours, right? And then I'd be like, how do I know what to say next? I have to think about it. I have to think about life and what I know, right? Because I've exhausted all these words. And then it's less visual, right? It's more of a personal sort of process of finding myself in the world that I'm in again. Could be, might not be, right? I might get bored, and I might just flip and just like I'm a lazy person, and I'm not doing that. You know what? I'm gonna wash my face and go for a walk, or I'm gonna lie down. But lying down and watching videos, I don't know if that's really something that should be a part of my quiet adjustment to having nothing to say, and should I get things to say from videos, but like it should always be like a gift, that comes from somewhere unknown, like a mystery. The mystery of what other people have to say. It's a mystery, and it's like and then there's the thoughts that you have, and then there's the words that you say, and they're different. And sometimes you think about what would be cool to say when you stop speaking. And then afterwards you're like, oh, I should have said that. Because you don't want to say what you thought, because it won't sound like you're thinking. And you need to think. And you need to think while you're speaking too. But also you need to listen to what you're saying. And nothing makes it more interesting listening to what you're saying than not knowing what you're saying. So sometimes you don't want to think about what you're going to say before you say it. You want to look back and say, that's what whatever. Because looking back, you're not necessarily planning on repeating what you said. But it's an exercise that they do in the arts, I think. I think they do this in the arts. They practice and they hone their skills of expression, and they think about what they say, they think about how they listen and all that stuff. Sometimes I just come out as a bit of an idiot. But then, what culture are you in the habit of observing through video? Right? Have you decided that you just want everybody to clap their hands for you? Because in that case, then the sky's the limit. There's loads of great things that you could think about doing, plan, execute, and show. Or it's not that bad just showing what you say to yourself, but you're limited in a lot of ways, and you won't be reachable exactly. And I know that I'm not reachable by the vast majority when I'm just smoking cigarettes, standing in front of the phone for half an hour. The time goes by so fast, and I think, oh well, I'm happy enough because I'm just looking at myself. But it's like, why is this good? Why is it good? Here's the question: why is it good? And then it's like, am I the only one? I'm the only one who can do this. So it's like, I'm the only one who can talk to myself as me. So it's like, is there some kind of trade-off? Because it's important, as well, what other people think. But other people, do you mind being another person? That's another question. Do you mind being another person? Would you mind being another person? What does it mean, man? What does it mean? What does it freaking mean? And I love movies, right? I love movies when I'm myself, but when I don't have, there's something you get from not having to be someone. But you don't always want that. You don't always want to not be someone when you're watching a movie. You want to be someone. And you can be the main character, but you can't, because you've decided that you are you, right? So maybe that's better. Maybe that's why. Maybe you decided that because you didn't want to give yourself up for the film. But then you're not me. So but what? Who cares? Who cares at the end of the day? Maybe that's a good thing. But it's a weird thing, It's a social thing. Why would anyone need to admit that? Well, you could just keep asking questions, but you're not asking science questions, and you should be asking science questions because that's what you wanted to freaking do all your life, is ask science questions. But you need to be somewhere where that's the norm, kind of. And it is kind of, I suppose you could just set it as the norm for a period of time yourself, as much as you can. You just set it, all right, this is a science moment. But how is it a science moment for me? Like, what's the question? You know, and it begins with a question. But what are you asking when you're watching a video of somebody else? And why would you ask it here? Like, why would you come to me? You come to me with a question. Well, let me tell you, I don't know everything, man. Oh, shit. All I know is that I'm in control of the camera, right? And that's like the bottleneck for unprofessional videos. It's just, I was in control of the camera back then, Your Majesty, and that's why that happened then. But then it's like, there's so many dangers as well, man. So it's like dangers that you have to think about, because it's only thought. Sometimes it's only thought, but then it couldn't always be only thought. You know, it couldn't be. To be a man and to also, you know, play, it's just a game of wits and, you know, strange temporary modes of existence. Of course, like, I don't have cigarettes all day, man. I only have cigarettes when I'm having conversation outside of a bar or outside of a freaking, like, show. Like, after the show, I go out and I want to have a chat with my friends and talk about what the show showed me and what I, you know, how I reflect on the shows that I watch with my friends outside, maybe with a cigarette, maybe with a beer. So what show did I see? Man, I'm not going to just tell you what, like, how are you even going to be still listening with nothing going? You're like, you know, how invested do you have to be to listen to someone talk about mostly nothing for 40 minutes? And I'm not even giving you any cigarettes. These are mine. But it's like, this isn't the best cigarettes either. Cigarettes in Dublin aren't that great. No. But it's not like I'm mad into smoking or anything. It's just, I don't know, it's a social thing, right? It's a social thing. But like, another thing is like, what are your sacrifices that you're making when you're watching somebody else's face, you know, talk about something? Can you sit and listen to? Can you actually listen? Can anyone listen to me talking right now? Like, realistically, of course not, because at this stage I'm just talking to a robot or a very invested individual somewhere in the universe, sometime in the universe. That's like the possibilities when you're making a video. And I know I shouldn't be laughing, but it's true. It's like, this could be anywhere. And it's like, it could be anywhere. I'm sorry if I can't help, but why would I not be able to help? You know, like, as more than anyone else. Like, why am I limited in being able to help somebody far, far in the future that someone who made a professional video, like, is doing? You know, like, what? And the answer, my friend, is not always visible, okay? It's just not always visible. You know, people are helping each other by preparing food for their children or preparing, you know, time for their friends, you know, and you don't see that, you know, it's not always on camera. Like, it's like, we know that, but do we know that as well? And like, how much do you want to know? How much do you think you want to know yourself? I had a great day. Oh man, I got up, I did some coding. I coded a new staff mechanic, which is just borrowing code from Woozy's tutorial and implementing it in the Rogue Staff of Wind Order, which is my game. And then I went for a walk, and I was going to go up the mountains, but I didn't make it that far, and I'm glad, because my feet got tired after about 40 minutes. So I came back and I soaked my feet in water, and I logged on to the game, Tunneler's Abyss, and I played a little bit quietly, figuring out what I'm going to do with all these things. Oh man, sometimes it's just like, I really want to talk about all these things in the fucking game world that I'm in sometimes, but it's like there's an unspoken rule where it's just like, just see what happens, just go with it or don't go with it. And maybe if you think about it a bit more, you decide not to do some things, and then because you get like this, something clicks inside. It's like something clicks inside that you don't always allow to click when you're running your day-to-day life, because you're sitting down and you forget that you're sitting down, but your mind is still thinking about what you're doing in the game, giving it life, giving it meaning. And then you make these decisions, like whatever decisions, because it's all about, it's only a decision if there's a result, right? Like, that you can see. Otherwise, it's just pure imagination. But it's imagination built on the dreams of the developers, right? And you aren't a developer when you're playing a game. So it's like you're just wiggling your tongue and your ears, and you're shaking your head and playing with your face, but you're not making your face, Are you? Well, the thing is, it has to come from both ways, there's the part where you're observing reality, but then there's the part where you're giving to reality what echo from within you can sacrifice your mind for. You sacrifice your acquisition of new information, strange information, things that you need to think about in order to understand. Sacrifice some of that to express something that has been dwelling in you from previous observations that you aren't sure should be allowed to disappear, right? It shouldn't necessarily be allowed to pass completely through you without your reflection giving it back out somehow, right? That's why it feels good to express something, right? But that thing that it expresses is something that you yourself don't even know. You're reaching for it yourself, and it's not all easy. It's something that you can hone and train and observe in professional creations. And I keep making things about creations being professional, but you appreciate professionalism on numerous levels because you have these questions about balance of values and authority on expression. It's not like all expression. Authority on language, like authority on whatever it is. The words that you use to describe things sometimes are too dark, right? Sometimes the words, the ink is too black. It's too final when you say something like, the arts were good back in 1990s, now they're bad. Something like that. Or like, obviously don't say that. That's not how you talk about, that's not how you complain about anything. But if you were complaining about something, man, like I think I'm a Jew, I think I just born to complain about a lot of things, like I imagine the perfect Jew is the man of the house or the woman of the house who just has all these complaints, like what's his name, like Jeff Goldblum's dad in Independence Day, that guy, that's who I think I am in my personality, really. Or maybe it's just what I it's the kind of like position that my mind glues to when given the end result of a great piece of work, great, coming together of minds and artistry and all that, whatever, and then giving it to everyone, right? And then me being someone, right? And then seeing, yeah, but obviously I'm not him, but it's not totally impossible that I could be him, like, or that I could carry some kind of torch for him, and it's like, it's a bit of it's a bit bourgeois to just be talking back to other people through YouTube as well. Like, I mean, is YouTube a conversation? You want it to be, deep down, that when you speak, it matters. But not so you can just block out what other people said, right? And it's a very privatized system, but for a reason. And all the reason that makes it comfortable to have a private expression seems connected to all the reason that we are disconnected when we're taking back in that information from others, when others speak in video. If you feel disconnected, well, if I feel disconnected, it's probably because I've already created boundaries in my own expression and I don't see them reflected, or I see other boundaries reflected. They're not the same boundaries, right? So we all stand in empty rooms and chat with each other casually, and maybe we can change the atmosphere from interrogation to simply being, which is important. But have you completely forgotten the chase, for a mate? Like, and why do you have to be so quiet about these things? Like, why can't, why are we so afraid of being honest? But like, it's because we don't understand everything that we say, like, afterwards. Like, obviously there's something important about saying something in the moment and compared with saying something for the future, right? And that's why the great art is actually really, really great thing, because it's like puts different perspectives together and it gels them up with each other in a creative way that both preserves the individuals in a sense, or it preserves their radiance, and also it's neatly packaged as well. But then you wonder, like, is there any chance that there's going to be a Hollywood movie where they go full Tarkovsky in it, or they go frickin' Twin Peaks or whatever? I don't even know what Twin Peaks is about, but I know Twin Peaks is up there in the realm of like moonlight, unicorns, and trumpet players under bridges, and slow introductions to cities through canals. Like, these are the things that movies really kick ass doing. Like, you start off and it's like you're in empty streets or whatever, and everyone deserves an empty street. Even snails. In this country we have snails and they go around outdoors. People are careful with walking, or so they don't, because they need to be careful, because you have to be careful, but you have to just know it. You have to know that you have to be careful walking down the streets when there's snails out. And so you time your walks to be, you go out during the day and they go in during the day, but sometimes it's not right. Something's drawing them out sometimes, and that's something you should really research. Why are the snails coming out onto the pavements? You know, on force. You know, what are they? You know, rebelling against? Are they rebelling against, you know, a lack of, you know, ecosystem for them to live in? And that's like the trouble. You know, that's a huge trouble, because like the transport infrastructure is very important for most people to get on with their lives. And it's my problem because I'm involved, because I walk down the streets. And it's, you know, it's not always understood everywhere in the world. And the artists aren't going to just say, you be careful where you're walking down the streets, because you might not be the person who sees those streets, you know. And somebody who lives in Australia could just have the same kind of thing that they want to say in a video. But if it goes online and then you're watching it, you're like, we got, you know, I'm not expressing it enough because I'm not showing you the problem. But who are you? But you like, you know, you could be someone, you know, anywhere as well. That's important. But why is YouTube only available in America and Europe? Why isn't it available in China? Because they want to limit expression, right? And in a safe, sort of healthy way, you know. It's not going to kill anyone to not be able to tell people in China to be careful when they're walking in the streets for snails, right? Because they have their own problems. Right? But, and we have reasonable boundaries, you know, because that's all the joy in travel, you know, the joy in exploration. You find these things out for yourself. The more things you can find out for yourself, the more of an authentic experience you'll have adventuring and exploring another place, right? But I would go to a museum just for that, you know, just for that schooling, because in a museum you learn in a safe zone to ask, what of the other lives in the past, and what of the other places far away, and what of the people who waited their whole lives for expression, you know? And it's more than just, you know, having a song on your MP3 player. It's about, you know, asking those questions. And that's about knowledge. It's not about competition. It's not the competitive sort of run to the finish. It's more a walk and letting the others win in the race, if it's a race. But it's not a race, because race is a social thing that you sort of have to be sort of invited as well to compete by your peers as you're growing as well. It's like, it could be, you know, harder for older people to, or not just older people, but people who have been in the dark for a long time about what's going on somewhere else, to just sort of step in and say, can I do this as well? Can I make videos? Can I make movies? You know, I like to think that I can make movies. I always used to get a lot more out of watching a movie when I used to think about the things that I could do, you know, in society as, you know, as a law-abiding, constructive, studious person, you know. I used to really understand, you know, I knew how to enjoy Back to the Future, you know, a lot more, because it was time travel, and time travel was still like an open book, you know. It's still something that you could think about, like Star Trek or whatever, you know. Yeah, okay. And then it gets whittled down. It's like you're not thinking about being a commander anymore. You're not thinking about even being a stowaway anymore. You're thinking about computers and what you're doing with computers, which is fine. It's fine, but and then you start wondering, was it always that? Is that what it always was? You know, as you grow into this, are you going to be convincing yourself that Star Trek was always about file storage and, you know, diplomacy with other people's computer systems? Or was it about space, you know? And if you know it was about space, then you feel bad. It's like, oh, I don't get it anymore, you know? And then you kind of want to be a first character in a movie, you know. Just, hey, put me in that world, man. You know, put me in that world. Let me see it, you know. let me dream. But and then you think you know all these things, but like, I mean, these lessons coming from the arts, I mean, were they apocalyptic asteroids into your body of dreams? Were you just bombarded with alien matter to the point where you had to create a different atmosphere for your biosystems to evolve? And that's like a lesson in history that you get now. It's like, don't forget, 95% of the world's life was extincted by a huge asteroid that came down. It's like, when you think about that, that's like huge, But don't think about it too much. And I certainly don't think about it for video. I mean, on the spot like this, like suddenly start thinking about asteroids. And then it's like, how do you know that's not what people want? to just think about that randomly. But it's too chaotic. Yeah, there's too much chaos in my expression. So it's like, it's too much because it's done better somewhere else. But then where's my lesson? How do I learn this? How do I know what the great movie stars, not just what the great movie stars, but what the great movie creators made for their films? Like, how do I know what they made? But then I have to think before I speak as well, because I'm just saying nonsense. It comes out as nonsense, but I have to judge it. But that's the thing. I'm admitting that I was a movie viewer, and while you're watching movies, you come to these conclusions, and you need them like stepping stones in order to follow the plot, right? But then you're supposed to think about it afterwards, right? But then how do you think about it? Like, because like, I'm the kind of person maybe sometimes that I just want to be somewhere and do my next step. But can I rely on it's called a schema, it's my worldview. Can I rely on my worldview to go further, or do I need to go back and make some adjustments to what I think I know? And all I seem to think I know right now is that I'm framing my expression here, but it's actually like I'm in my bedroom, and there's other things going on, and I'm actually very lazy too. I find that there's two approaches to computers, actually. One is to try and change everything, and another is to try and change nothing and try and just do as little as possible so that you can be yourself and do the little things that you're trying to do. You got these little things that you don't want to let them go. You don't want to just like not have your downloads in the download folder. Sometimes it's like you need your downloads in the one place so you can delete them afterwards, because you can, at the end of the day, you're going to want to move your operating system again, so you just want to have all of that stuff that you got from somewhere else that still exists somewhere else. You don't want a copy of it like in your baggage. You just want your things in your baggage, and your things are the things that don't exist anywhere else. So and then you have to judge everything you create as well. You have to be like, oh, here is the thing, but this isn't the thing. This isn't the thing. This isn't me existing, and then the thing is the thing. But it's like a perspective problem. It's a problem with perspective that obviously a lot of people are able to overcome. But before you overcome it, why are you overcoming it? Like, yes, because it has a result. But the thing about results is that they give you choices for your activity, and your activity becomes more programmable, right? You're programming yourself to produce a result, which cannot be too serious, right? You just can't be too serious about that. Like, you can't be too serious about that. But then am I limiting myself by taking a slow path to production? Like, I mean, I'm already 35, etc., etc., right? You know, like anyone who was at 35 has made 2 movies, for example, has a different story and a different lesson, right? But like, is it a different world now in the box? You know, one where certain things aren't allowed. You know, one where if you fart, it doesn't exist. You didn't fart. You know, cancelled, censored, out. It's like, what? Or you just keep your farts invisible. I'm really behind in making videos. I decided to just stop there at the last one. It's really hard to have people over. We have a table, but we don't have anyone visiting it. You know. That would be nice, to have people over. My mom says it has to be a nice, clean place. You know, we don't want people to see dirt somewhere. But I'm not that kind of person who needs a room to be perfectly clean before they let other people come in and see it. Because you're doing like, yeah, okay, so you put on some kind of expression. It's not about expression, right? Okay, so when you're having people over, you're not really trying to show them your house. You're trying to, you know, are we all like secret police or something, where we only have people over in empty rooms so we can interrogate them with these big lights and be like, so where did you go to studies, and who are you, and where are you from, and where's your passport, and all this? No, oh, cut that out. No, it's just well, I'm starting again. I'm really bad at videos, actually. Sometimes I'm just really bad, because I don't have anything particularly to say. But what's so wrong with that? What's wrong with that? As a person, what's wrong with not having anything? But I do have things to say. It's just that I'm activated when I'm around other people. But how do I keep myself in check? How do I keep myself from being yeah, okay, so if I'm just like with myself and an image of myself, like to build a thing with, but that's the video thing, that's the process, right? It's a great process. I need to appreciate it more, right? I need to appreciate the express, and I just want to create chaos, don't I? Like I just want to have that little picture of the build, the sky view. Oh, let me tell you, the sky view was a great kind of achievement in Wanty for me to see happen. Like, but than like reflection on the circumstances of expression that we have. But we only have it this way because it's, yeah, we have things that we should be able to appreciate, and perhaps you should meditate on those things, because if you don't like know yourself, what you're doing, or the consequences of your production, like, because at the end of the day, your videos, one day you're going to be like, oh, that's a nice video, I said something cool, I want to share that with everyone, and I think that's okay. But there are other things I want to share with everyone too. I want to play piano for, it's not everyone, it's like anyone, right? And if you permit yourself to be a little differentiating with the people who you wish to communicate I mean, there is a very sensible, healthy approach there. You don't want to just, be heard by somebody who doesn't want to listen to you necessarily. And it's not because of you, it's not because they know who you are or anything, it's just because because the harmony isn't necessarily in that body to body interaction. A person's body isn't always ready for interaction with others. That's why there's a sort of a gentle introduction to society. It would be like outdoors, on the street, or in the park, or in a school, or in a workplace. But in your bedroom, like in your kitchen, I don't know if that's always best. It's not best, because it is. It's okay, but it's like more of a castle thing. It's like castles, because it's like somebody's home, and it's where somebody needs peace and to feel like in control, more so than in other places, because they have more responsibility for the things in those places. I don't know if I need to express it this way or anything. I don't know what. But you do need to understand as much as you can about the world when you're creating something and putting what looks like you in it, because a lot of us rely heavily on images of not just others but of ourselves to keep us going with the things that we do in society. Like why do we have Zoom meetings? Because we get support from acknowledging each other face to face, and we allow for technological bridges through the communication obstacles. And this is one such bridge, but for who and what is the role that you as a listener take and me as a speaker take, and why am I the speaker? Look, why can't we change that? But do we have a place where we can, one person create some yeah, well, you see, there's the platforms, the developers make games, but do you really know any of this? Like, there's another thing is, you should just talk like you're talking to other people, and be a person, and be careful with how many crazy words you adapt, like uploading to the internet. Like, it's such a strange expression, really. It's not easy to think of yourself as actually doing this. So what is it that you actually do? It's something in your mind that you think, that's what I've done, because it's a temporal thing as well. It begins and it ends. It's a process that you need to complete in order to get by, because we're all liars at the end of the day. None of us are doing all of it by ourselves completely. So nobody's got a perfect full stop on any process. And it's fair enough. It's like we're all passing through space and the internet and days. We're passing through our days as well. But it's also, we're creating images. Well, I don't know. That's the thing, right? You think, am I doing something? Well, it's not my fault, right? I didn't invent the internet, so it's them. But it's us, because I'm using the internet. So it's like, I feel like I should consider it as a thing that I'm part of. But then I'm like, why do I need so much attention and investment in the thing that I create? And then why do I not want to be ignored? And that's like why I'm not an expert. I'm really not an expert. But I mean, that's why there's things like the X Factor and, you know, America's Got Talent. It's because people want to express themselves, and they don't even want to express themselves too much, you know, and they feel like they're being too exposed if they're all caught up in all the machinery of everything behind it. And you know, a lot of people are happy to just work with the machine in the background, and like the machine of, you know, okay, maybe I'm being a bit dismissive by just umbrella terming it all as a machine. It's like a range of machines that I shouldn't really go into without using, because if you're not using them, you're referring to them from such a great distance that you run the risk of, you know, creating a language of contempt, because you don't. There are some machines that you really need to focus in order to appreciate them, and if you don't focus, you're just going to dismiss them, and that's not progress. It's not progress to just dismiss some machines that seem too complicated, but you still use the language to talk about them anyway. Like, and of course, yeah, with AI, there was the whole situation of new answers, but low investment in source for the answers, which was always the case with the internet for consumers. But there was always some aspect of it that was about sort of appreciating the gift of the internet, which is very important. It's important for you to console yourself, to be content with not doing something, but like, so if I sit too long, I'm not comfortable, and I have to sort of justify it by it being important. But that can be a slippery slope. You can end up justifying too much, I think. But these are just concerns, and you know, being a bit, you could be a bit prudent in your acquisition of tools, because at the end of the day, the tools, you know, they can be really powerful. But if you're not careful with, I mean, if you just decide that all the tools are for entertainment, for example, then, you know, like when you need help, you're gonna ask for somebody else to use tools, right? And then it's the hospitals and the civil workers that you're going to be asking for help from when you've got like only, you know, 500 songs by devilmaycare.com or whatever instead of cents, right? But then, do you need cents, right? The idea would be, you know, let's not invest too heavily on other people's cents when it's not that important. And then you think, how do I help other people? Is it just by like this medium? How do I help other people with this medium? And the answer should be obvious. You should look at how other people do it. But then, like, how do I do it? Like, if I do it, shouldn't it be a bit different? And then the question is, do I want to look at myself as just somebody who's just constantly creating new ways of doing things? And is that a conceit? Right? Is it a conceit to expect so much from my image? Where's my right, so I was going to go to the museum the other day, and I didn't. I wanted to go and look at some of the, you know, displays and think about science and history and natural history. And I can do that in Kildare Street in Dublin, but life got in the way and I didn't. That's fine, that's okay, because I'm not accustomed to it, but that's, what you do on holiday. When you're on holiday, you go and you see things. It's alright, the thing about it is, I get encouragement from a lot of the YouTube videos that are out there, but I like to just, think about possibility of just doing things, my way as well. And at the end of the day, it's a recording device. So am I talking to a recording device, or am I talking to some perceived person in the future, far, far in the future, who's struggling with, whether or not they should compress this video or just leave it in their storage, where there's also right next to my video there's some witches dancing in the woods and a dog in a vet having waiting for the operation and last words just in case or something. Well, I don't think that's the way I would approach dog. I took my dog to the vet before, actually, and that was great. I sang a song for my dog. I wrote a song for my dog. And if that was on a video, some guy in the future is looking back over the videos and thinking, do I have to delete this video? Do I have to delete this video or not? And is that relevant? And of course it is. Everything that you think about, why abandon it, right? Why abandon any concept that you know? Why abandon anything that you know or experienced in your life? Don't. Your life is too valuable. You have these choices. You have this choice of I could do it this way, I could do it this way, but the choices are only there because there are results from the past that have been accomplished with this associated sense of success and profit. What's it like without that? What happens if you don't know these things, right? What's the possibility? And then you have concerns and you have rules, you have boundaries, but the boundaries are handed down from your elders and your teachers and your interest and intentionality towards values. You have values, right? I just totally flared up when I had an argument there with my mom about having people over, depending on, I have to clean a room in order to have people over. And most people think that's okay, but that room has been a mess for 5 years, and it's got a lot of things in it that have been there for 20 years. It's really important, and her idea of cleaning it could be to just have no dust on surfaces, but my idea of cleaning it is going through the school notes and recompiling knowledge from the university studies that I did that I didn't get through. That's my idea of cleaning it, and that's where it starts. If it doesn't start there, it starts by just joining another university course and getting more advice, and they have all the tools there to help you in a way, because what is a university but a bunch of people who are committed to learning things, but also the society of learning, which is to make learning sort of more open and all of that. But if you don't talk to other people, you're not going to be interested in talking about all those things anyway. And if you're listening to other people express leadership roles too much, then you're also stuntified and stultified and flabbergasted and bamboozled. So, but I'm only saying that because I'm talking to this little recording device that's going to supposedly capture everything, and if I accept a limit on the amount of things that it can actually achieve in capturing things, then I have more work to do in developing what I create. That I don't want to express too much, but the proof is in the pudding. It's whatever you do comes out the other end clean, right? If it's good work. It's the idea. I mean, there's a lot of ways you can just get bored halfway through a job and decide it's not worth it. And I suppose those parts are cut out. But then it feels bad, like, oh, man, I have to cut out parts of the experience that I'm having right now because it's not good enough for the fucking system. But it's like, is it good enough for me? That's the question. Like, and then, do I have the patience to listen to somebody else who's totally confused about loads of things in technology? Like, I've seen people who are working so hard to help other people, like, do things like log into their Facebook accounts, get back their photos that they lost and all of these things. And there's loads of problems like that. And my solution sometimes is to just not worry about it and just forget about it because, life goes on. And that's like, what does that mean to the other people? So it's like, it's all connected as well, It's just a bit of give and take, I think. Give and take. Because, you're not an expert. But sometimes when you're watching art, you feel like you've been given a perspective that you deserve. You deserve more as well. And that's great. That's a great gift. The great arts do that I want to support as well. And then, of course, you see, the thing, it depends on how competitive my approach is to creating anything. Like creating full stop is a challenge of the mind to comprehend. But I mean, you don't have to think about it all the time, but you might not know that somebody else has already done it, and then you might feel like you have a gift. But it seems to be that always the case is, like, when you're talking, you feel like you're talking to someone, right? You're not just talking to yourself. I was in Dundrum today, and there's a public piano, and I only went in to see if I could get a refund on an air credit that, but on the way in I played a little piano. It was a light-hearted piano. It wasn't like, playing the piano, like, but actually, people have limits in what they're willing to listen to as well. I know that when I play piano, I'm built to play piano in the background, right? In a setting where people can talk to each other and not be distracted by the music. That's what I do. I play jazz, but my style of jazz, and it's open to influence by other players, and I make sure that that's the case when I play. Like, I'm always listening when I'm playing, right? You want to play notes and be able to listen to all the other things as well, right? That's ideal, but it's not always the case. When you're learning, sometimes you have a mission to protect an abstract melody or a tune that with your sense of sound, and that comes from your grace. It's grace. What it is, it's grace, because it's about not fighting with words. It's about just, if you want to break a rule, break the root to fourth to fifth rule, break the rule of thirds or whatever, and then do it politely and bring it back, make it safe. Now that's how you break rules in sound, right? But you can do that in words too, and people are thrown off, and it's too powerful as well. You shouldn't be, you don't blow up like that. But I did. I blew up like that, right? To make a point, to make my point, because I didn't have that much mental sort of, there's a mental sort of fortitude, not fortitude, but reserve. I didn't have that amount of mental or emotional, it's emotional reserve, because I haven't been waiting for action, which I would be doing if I was in a class, for example, waiting for my wisdom to mature before I express something. Right, I'm just going to stop here in 24